Barak Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Bracha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is, Thence will I bring thee down. Thence will I bring thee down. And this is a direct quote from the book of Obadiah. The first chapter, which is only one chapter long. And, that's what we're going to build the lesson around. Because I was watching the video that the elder Bishop Anab sent me earlier. I didn't get a chance to watch the whole video, but I watched a good portion of it. It was about 19 minutes and some change long. And it pretty much was speaking about the pornographic industry. It was speaking about immorality. It was speaking about sexual deviance, and the consequence that it has on the children today, or back then, especially today, the consequence that it had on the children back then, and pretty much how it was decaying the social morality and just the morality, in general of America, which was painted as this great beacon of light to the world. Well, I don't see how, but that's how they had it, and pretty much, they were saying that, that through that, they were pushing a lot of, alphabet people functions, alphabet people behavior. And, the Edomite that was speaking, that's back when Esau, they were on top, and they were, holding that idea that they are these benevolent Christians. And he spoke about the J Dueo, Jude. I don't really want to say it because, these devils, the J Christian values that so-called America, possessed, and that pretty much they so-called upheld, you know what I'm saying? And pretty much, it's not the case, because the thing is that, the principles of America were never, really embedded upon the Bible, because if that was the case, they wouldn't have had slaves. They wouldn't have stole this land from the so-called Native American Indians. They wouldn't have stole Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America, the Caribbean islands. They wouldn't have stole any of that if they were really based upon those principles. But what it was just a fake, a fake so-called quote-unquote Christian society, and that's what they base it around. So it's no coincidence that around the time where these social morals of America started going down, that was around the time of the 60s. And there was a big incident that took place in 1969 with the so-called, launching of the Apollo flight mission into space, so-called space, or should I say so-called landing of the moon, because you do have space. You have the outer atmosphere outside of the ozone layer, which is called space. You have the heavens, which is, the sky where the birds are, the clouds, sun, water clouds, and the such, and then you have the outer atmosphere. That's why the Lord set up the so-called ozone layer to separate the outer atmosphere from the inner atmosphere, because he was getting it prepared for man's, habitable, to be able to inhabit the earth and be able to breathe. Because outside of, when you get up in the air to a certain degree, you can't really breathe that well. Then when you that's why they have to wear masks. Have to have oxygen when they go to a certain distance. That's why the Lord had to bring and compress the elements on the earth for man to be able to breathe, habitable earth. But when they so-called went out into, so-called Apollo mission that was supposed to landed on the moon, man so-called went to the moon. That was straight up yes. But from that point on, and just prior to that, they started going down. There's no coincidence that they started going down around that time, because this is part of the prophecy. Let's go to the book of Obadiah, right? Let's start at the first verse. The point is around the third verse or so, fourth verse. But let's start at the first verse. It says, the vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord power, concerning Edom, because this prophecy is directed at a people known as the Edomites, whose forefather goes back to the name of Esau, which the word Esau, or the name Esau, means wasted away is he, which goes, which is the twin brother of Jacob. Jacob being a man that pretty much came out regular looking brown skin, and Esau came out looking different. That's why Isaac called him Esau, right? Joshua, right? And his name was later changed to Edom because he sold his birthright for red pottage, and therefore his name was changed to Edom, or Adawam, which means red. And that's the definition, or that is the true meaning of the word Adawam, or Edom. It means red. Now, it's totally different from Adam, Adama, which the word Adam, or the name Adam, means ground. It doesn't mean, red, as these devils try to make you think. And then they'll say the word ruddy means red. The word ruddy does not mean red. The word ruddy is brown. If you type in ruddy animals into the Google search, you're going to see brownish, or you're going to see brown animals with like a reddish tone, on them. So the word ruddy does not mean red. That's just something that Esau put out there. So the two words are different. They sound similar. Adawam, Adama. They look similar. If you're not studied, then you would get confused. But that was the deal. So Edom, this prophecy here in the book of Obadiah, as well as other books, is dealing directly with the Edomites. It says, we have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador sent among the heathen, arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. Yeah, they're small because they're pretty much, as it says, greatly despised. Not so much as small in number, but small as far as, in their stature, as far as, the what's the word I'm looking for? The evolution of man. They're the lowest form of man. So, just to put it in those terms. And to prove that, let's go to the book of Job, the 30th chapter. And then from there, let's go to the book of Daniel. And let me just hold those two precepts for the time being. So this is the book of Job, the 30th chapter. We're just going to go straight to the point. I'll start at 5. It says, they were driven forth from among men. They cried after him as after a thief. And then you see the reason why. Because as soon as Esau got let out of that prison sentence, the very first thing he did was what? He deceived the world and he stole the world. It says to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in caves of the earth, and in the rocks. Why? Because this was a direct curse that the Lord put upon the serpent, which was an actual man, in the Garden of Eden. And there, the Lord told him that they will go upon their belly, they will eat dust. And that does not mean, because a serpent doesn't eat dust. What dust is a representation of confusion. And pretty much, Esau, when they were in the caves, of the Caucasus Mountains, they were in a very destitute, low state, and even when they started to mingle among the nations and started getting, somewhat, uh, um, civilized, they still were in a beastly state. When you read the book, The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler, there's a section in there where you had different scholars among Ishmael, different, historians that would come to visit with them and to speak to them about certain things. The manner in which they described them was terrible. They would wear their drawers till they disintegrate off of them. They'll be having a meeting. They will have their women in the meeting. Which, Ishmael is totally against that because they're more in tune with the scriptures than Esau is. The women would pick lice out of their, private parts. Just different things that it's just nasty stuff like that. So they are the lowest form of man on the planet, and they are the people that have lived in that condition in the caves. They go back to Mount Seir, which Mount Seir was originally inhabited by the Horites, which were Hamites, but they didn't live in that destitute state that Esau did. And even back when Esau was in Mount Seir, in those regions, they didn't live in that destitute state like that. It wasn't until later on, because they were Hebrews, they wore garments, they had beards, and they had a certain, from their father Isaac, they had a certain way about them that they carried themselves. Even back then, it wasn't until they came into the caves of the Caucasus Mountain and got down to that caveman state that they started to be that way. But they were pretty much the lowest form of species from the beginning anyway. And the Lord cursed the serpent, which was the actual man, that they would be the lowest of the low. So it says, among the bushes they braid. That's what donkeys do, and that's how they were speaking. When you see those movies, Caveman and 10,000 BC or 10 million BC or whatever the name of those movies are, them caveman movies, you see them in that state. You see them in the movie Planet of the Apes, not speaking, just pretty much grunting at each other, and that's pretty much their history. And them devils that put together that Planet of the Apes series, they know the history. It says, among the bushes they braid, under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth. And when you check out this word base men, it says, even in the precept it says, and when you go to the Hebrew, it says men of no name, meaning they were not renowned because they are the lowest form of human. That's why I said they were viler than the earth. You see? So they were the lowest of the low. Then when we go to the book of Daniel 4 and 17, it says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men. And that's exactly what the Heavenly Father does. He rules in the kingdom of men. And he gives out the different time periods where man is to rule. It's the same earth that's being ruled. It's just a transfer of wealth and a transfer of empires from one ruler to the next, or from one nation to the next. And giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. Matter of fact, let me look up that word basest of men in the book of Daniel 4 and 17. And let's see what that says. Daniel chapter 4 and verse 17. Let's see what that says. Basest of men. The word basest is shapal, low, lowliest of station, right? Because they are the bottom of the totem pole. And when we go to the book of Obadiah, let's go to the book of Obadiah. Obadiah. And that was verse 2, was it? I have made thee small. The word small is kotan, young, small, insignificant. See, unimportant. It has nothing to do with just being small in number. They're insignificant. They're small, insignificant, young, unimportant. That's why Job, when we read the book of Job, the 30th chapter also from the top, it says, they that are younger than I have me in derision. So how are they younger than us? Because the so-called black man, brown-skinned man, was here before the Edomites were. Then later on, they came down the line. They came out of a brown-skinned man and a brown-skinned woman named Isaac and Rebecca. So they are younger than us, even though they are the eldest of the two twins. You see? Now, I'm interested to see something. Let me go to the book of Job. I'm sorry, not Job. Yeah, Job. Let me go to the book of Job. Let me go to the 30th chapter. Let me see what it says just bear with me. This is just an investigation we're conducting here. Job 30 and 1. But now they that are younger than that. There's two words for the younger. One is Taza Ayar. Little, insignificant, young. See, little, insignificant, mean. So it could be applied to somebody that's younger than you, but it could also apply to somebody that's insignificant. And dealing with the case of Esau, they're insignificant. That's what when you read further down, it said they were children of fools, base men. And the word baseman means men of no name. Because when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, what has Esau really accomplished on the earth? What really are his, I want to know from these devils, what have they actually really accomplished? What have they contributed to society, besides rape, robbery, and murder? Because everything they got, that's how they got it. Every culture, everything that they have, they're nothing more than culture vultures. They pretty much live off of the backs of others, live off of the talent of others, because they have no talent but the talent of deception and the talent of the sword. And those are the only two things that they have. And that was the blessing that Isaac said that Esau was going to have, and how he was going to rule and get the earth, through that sword, through that blessing that was given to him. When we look on the earth, that doesn't fit anybody else but these so-called white people, which in the Bible are known as the Edomites, the true red people, the true red men of the earth. The true red people of the earth, not the so-called North American Indians. And the reason why they call them red people, the so-called North American Indians, which are the tribe of Gad, is because of the war paint that they would wear, different paint that they would put on them. That's why they were called the red men. They're not red. They're not the Redskins. The real Redskins are the Edomites. And that's what the word Edom means, red, Adawam. So going back to Obadiah, then it says, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. Right, because everything that you do, you don't just affect yourself, you affect everybody else around you. Your actions affect everyone around you. Let's look up the word despised. Thou art greatly despised. And I forgot to look up the other word. I got to go back. The word there is bazah. To despise, hold in contempt, disdain, yeah. Despise, regard with contempt, right? Because they're making themselves appear as these benevolent people, but they're nothing more than scumbags. They're nothing more than lowlifes, And then they're proud about it too. Talking about some manifest destiny, which it was manifest destiny for us to go down and you to take over, but now it's manifest destiny to reverse it, because the Lord is going to revenge us upon you. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity, and it means what it says. So the word there, the second word for the word younger than I is the word yawam, which is day, time, year, which is time. All right. And, you could use it as one that's despised, and you could also use it as one that is younger in time because they came later, even though Esau was the eldest of the two sons. So either way you slice it, it still comes up peanuts. So it goes on to say back in Obadiah 1 and 3, the pride of thine heart has deceived thee, right? Because you've been given power over the planet. You've used your weapon well. You've taken over everything. You've amassed your wealth. You living it up. And your pride has been through the roof. But the pride of your heart has deceived thee, because you're thinking that you're going to be able to continue forever. That's why in the book of Psalms, it says that they think that their houses are going to continue to all generations. So you don't ever think you're going down. You don't ever consider that all of these great empires that ruled in the past, have come and gone. You never consider that, but you know about it, but you don't think that you'll ever go down. So that ain't gonna happen to us because in other words, in your mind, you think you have everything sewed up. You think you have every angle covered. You think you have every angle. You see all the angles. You don't see all the angles. You don't have everything covered. Remember, the Most High is a master strategist. It's like two individuals playing chess. They're both very good, but one is more keen than the other. And the one that's less keen, he's setting up moves. He's setting up moves. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 moves ahead, and he got him. In his mind, I got him now. All I gotta do is just wait it out. And then, but by the time he gets ready to make the last move, where he think he's gonna get the other guy in check, he gets checkmated. And that's how the Most High is. He's the keenest, the master strategist. Where you think you got the upper hand, boom, the Heavenly Father lowers the boom on you. How do you like them apples? So going on, it says, the pride of thy heart has deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks. So the Lord is leaving us clues. He's leaving us breadcrumbs as to who, these Edomites are. And nobody has that history of being cavemen, And when you try to research, you could do it. When you try to research the history of cavemen, they don't really give you much. Or if they do give you something, they said that was millions of years ago or billions of years ago. You really can't find too much information on it. And then when you find pictures, they're just, sometimes they're drawings, and sometimes they're from movies, or sometimes it's just Edomites that might have dressed up, as cavemen for Halloween. You'll find these pictures, but it's hard to find that information because when you read the learned elders, the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, protocol number 16, they said that they will erase from history anything that makes them look bad, in so many words, and only leave those things that are pretty much pleasurable to them and make everybody else look bad. And that's how they get down. All right. So it says that dwelleth in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high. What is a habitation? A habitation are your living quarters. And when you look at the world, who has habitations high? You have something called skyscrapers. Why are they called skyscrapers? Spanish is rascacielos. Why are they called skyscrapers? Because they scrape the sky. Pretty much. The same thing with rascacielo, which literally means skyscraper. And that's their habitation. And why did they do that? Because that reminds them of they're living in that high altitude of those mountains. We look up the word habitation. The word habitation is the word yeshab, which the word yeshab means to sit. After we do the like when we're doing the Sabbath service slash the Passover service, and you do a salute or you do go through a set of prayers, you will say yeshab yum, which yeshab means sit, yeshab yum means sit down, like plural. So yeshab yum, everybody sit down. So there's their place where they sit down and rest, relax, and chill, right? Yeshab, that's where they dwell. Their habitation is what? High. To dwell, remain, sit, abide. See, their abode or their abide, which is what? The homes, the thing that covers them, the edifice, which is a building. Just a fancy way of saying building, which is where edifice, edificio means to build. It says to sit down. Pretty much it goes in it's the same thing. Now when we go I hate when I do that. All right. Just bear with me. Now let's go to the word high. It's habitation, or the place they sit, or their home is high. The word for high is marawam. Marawam. Height. Elevation. Elevated place, which is what? That's these different buildings and these structures that they build. Now, no other nation has ever done that, ever. The only time that this was attempted was during the time of the Tower of Babel, or the Tower of Babel, as Tex Mars says it. You know, the Tower of Babel. That was the only time a tall building was to be built that high, because the building should be no more than 3 stories high. You know, and even when it's that tall, you have to build, I believe they're called battlements around it. And that would be protection around the edges of the building so nobody would fall off. You know, even the Ark of the Covenant itself was 3 stories high. You know, King Solomon, his home, I believe, was 3 stories high. I believe it says 3. I forget if it says. I forget how, the terminology, but none should be higher than 3 stories high. But when this devil came into power, he set up what? Skyscrapers to remind them of his living in those caves. And this is more proof, more breadcrumbs, more evidence of who the Edomites are. Now, the other nations, you know, in these modern times and even going back, they haven't done that. You know, the very first time a skyscraper was erected was back in the 1800s, I believe it was, the late 1800s, which was in Chicago. It was an insurance company, and the building was 10 stories high. And it made all of those homes and buildings around it, you know, look like midgets. You know, look like, you know, like ants in comparison to that building. That was the very first time a skyscraper was erected, which was an insurance company, which was 10 stories high, and I'm almost guarantee you that they had something to do, or they were involved in the slave trade somehow, some way. You know, because you have these insurance companies today that got their riches off of insuring slaves. You see? This is such a benevolent, righteous society. So, you know, that was the very first time. And then after that, it started growing. And then once these nations started to get, you know, that Americanization in them, then they started building high skyscrapers, just like America, because they were drinking of the wine of the fornication. Everything in the world mirrors America. Because this is Babylon the Great. And these are the Edomites, the daughter of Babylon. So going on back in Obadiah, it says, the pride of thy heart has deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in her heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Right, they even have a song in the Air Force that nothing can stop the Air Force. And pretty much what does that mean? They're implying that not even the Most High can stop the Air Force. And that's the same thing they said about the Titanic. And what happened? It went down. Now, ultimately, you know, there was a bigger plot behind it, and they brought it down, you know, to destroy people that was on it because they were hindering the plans of the illuminated ones. But nevertheless, man's goals are of the Lord. So whether an iceberg hit it, which we don't believe that happened, whether Leviathan hit it, or whether they actually blew holes in it, you know, to sink it, it was still all the Heavenly Father. So verse 4 says, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle. Here goes another clue, another breadcrumb. The symbol of America is what? The eagle. Benjamin Franklin wanted to use the turkey, which is a more benevolent, you know, a humble mascot, for lack of better words. But they was like, nah, they wasn't having it. They wanted that eagle. Why? Because the eagle is the highest flying bird, the keen eyesight, plus it's proud. It's a proud bird, and that's a fit symbol for America. And this is more clues that the Heavenly Father is giving us, these breadcrumbs to let us know who the Edomites are. It says, and though thou set thy nest among the stars. And when did that happen? When they started setting up their shuttles. And that shuttle started going up, what, in 1969. That's the very same year where the truth was really being hammered out on the earth, you know. And they so-called set their nest among the stars. They didn't go to the moon. But that was the first time they went up into the upper atmosphere, you know. And from that point on, a little prior to that, they were going down, but from that point on, they really started going down. And you started to really see the demoralization of America. You know, the utter hate and contempt that these devils have for the Most High's law, statutes, and commandments. I want to just look up the word demoralize. Let me see what comes up. Demoralize. Demoralize. Okay, so I want to hold on to that. Let me look up the word moral or morals. Moral. It says the significance of a story or event, we're not looking for that, concerned with principles of right and wrong, right, or conforming to standards of behavior and character based on those principles. And what are the principles that they base it upon? They said the J Christian ways, which is what? The scriptures, the Bible. That's what they said they based it upon, the morals of the Bible. But when you look at the morals of the Bible and the laws of the Bible, and you look at the morals of this society, they don't match. Psychological rather than physical or tangible in effect. But the point is, it's concerned with principles of right and wrong, or conforming to standards of behavior and character based on those principles. And that's exactly, what it is. All right. Now, to demoralize is corrupt morally or by intemperance or sensuality. See, corrupt morally or by intemperance, which intemperance is what? To be intemperate means not to be balanced. To be temperate means to be balanced, disciplined. To be intemperate, well, actually, intemperate or temperate means to be. I just used the word. Temperate means to be disciplined. That's the word. Disciplined. Intemperance means to be undisciplined. So you demoralize something by corrupting it morally, or by intemperance, or undisciplined, or sensuality, which goes into what? Sensuality goes into the senses, to the flesh, the lust of the flesh. That's sensuality. When we go to the book of James, the 3rd chapter and the 14th verse, start there. It says, but if you have bitter envy and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. And that's what these devils did. They lied against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. See? So it's earthly, sensual, devilish. And we know that the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. And we know that the whole world lieth in wickedness. So what I want to do is go to the book of James real quick. And let's look up that word, sensual. And that's how this country became demoralized. By intemperance, sensuality, the pushing of these immoral ways. And one of the immoral ways was the alphabet soup, that they making the world sip on, with a plastic spoon. The word sensual. It says, the word is psychikos. Psychikos. Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with psyche, of or belonging to breath, having the nature and characteristics of the breath, the principle of animal life, which men have in common with the brutes, governed by breath, the sensuous nature with its subjection to appetite and passion, which is what? The appetites of the flesh. That's why the Apostle Paul said, matter of fact, let's get that real quick. Let's go to the book of, I want to read that in James 3 again, but let's go to Colossians real quick. Colossians chapter 3, and I'm not sure if it starts at 1 or if it's the 5th verse. Colossians 3 and 5. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, which is what? The word mortify comes from the word mortal, which means dead. So deaden your members which are upon the earth, which is what? Fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Why? Because that demoralizes an individual, and this is part of the things that brought Jake down. It demoralized them. It brought them to a low state, and that's what brought this. That's part of what brought this country down, the demoralization. Because prior to that, they had so-called, so-called Christian values, or as they call it, Judeo-Christian values, which is based off of the Bible. But everything that they do goes in contrary to what the scriptures say, and that's what that video that was that Elder Bishop Inab sent me, was stating. It was going into the very the demoralization of the very fiber of so-called American society that had painted to the world that they were these benevolent people, although they had stole this land and had slaves and brought the Southern Kingdom here in captivity. But as far as so-called morals, and sexual, whether it was sexual or moral, whatever, it was all supposed to be based upon, so-called Christian principles. So in the 60s, I was looking up what year did pornography first come to America, because it went back to the BC era, but I didn't really get a chance to look it up. I forgot, because I was just in the spirit just to set everything up and go live. But I was looking it up, and I'm not sure what year exactly pornography started coming to America. But the individual was saying that they were selling. It was $1 billion a year industry, and that was back in the 60s. So just imagine now. So Lord's will, if I remember, I'll look to see what year did pornography, or was pornography introduced to America. On it pretty much like on a public scale, because I'm pretty sure people had certain shit. But I'm talking about like in a public scale where people was actually buying magazines and movie or whatever the case was, So let's go back to James 3. Matter of fact, let's read that again. Colossians 3 and 5. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry, right? Because they push that immorality here, because these devils think that the more Jake is corrupt, sexual deviancy and diet wise and all that, wearing these funky ass fabrics and all that, they think that that's going to stop the Heavenly Father from accepting Jake. But the Lord said that he will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. Why? Because he made a promise with an oath to Abraham. So you're delusional, Mr. Edomite. So it says, for which things sake the wrath of the Most High cometh on the children of disobedience. Yeah. So if it's coming on the children of disobedience, that's not something that should be done. See? It's depravity. Matter of fact, let's look up the word depravity. Depravity. Let's look up the word depravity. Depravity. Moral perversion, see? Impairment of virtue and moral principles. A corrupt or depraved or degenerate act or practice. Right. So when you look up the word depraved, which I should have just looked it up, depraved means corrupt morally or by intemperance or sensuality, which we just read that was the definition of demoralize. It's the same thing, pervert. And not only was the way a man and a woman supposed to deal with each other perverted, but also the gospel was perverted. There's instances where Esau says that uh, King David, or before he was King David and Jonathan were they had a alphabet soup relationship. You know, they said that when you read the scriptures, when two women were grinding in the bed, that means that two women were getting it on, and then one was taking, the other one left. No, man, that's satanic, demonic behavior, and that's satanic, demonic, vibration that has been pushed out here. The alternative alphabet soup. So let's go back to James 3. I want to read that again. James 3 and 15. This wisdom descended not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. And there's a precept there for sensual. What does that say? And it says natural, which is what? Carnal. Because the flesh desires those things. That's why there's a constant battle between the flesh and the spirit. All right, but these devils, they push it out there to where it's okay. Just do whatever you do. Go on and do it. Do it till you're satisfied, whatever it is. Do as thou wilt, which is the whole something of the law that devil Aleister Crowley said. So this place is demoralized. So the Lord said, going back to Obadiah 1 and 4, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, we dealt with that. That's their symbol, the eagle. And though thou set thy nest amongst the stars, that we dealt with that. That was dealing with their space program. Now you got satellites up there. You have space stations. You have, so-called astronauts out there doing what they do. So the Lord said, when you did that, and when was the first time they did that? It was back in 1969 through the Apollo flight mission, because there was a race, a space race between Russia and America, because Russia back then, I forget what year it was, I'm not sure if it was in the 50s, they sent up Sputnik, which was a Russian satellite. So America concocted this big lie and hired Stanley Kubrick to use his space studio, where he had filmed this particular movie. I think that was 2001 Space Odyssey, if I'm not mistaken. And they used that as a pretense to them going to the moon. But it's no coincidence that once they did that, they really started to decline, because they were already on a decline. But when they did that, the Lord said, and though thou set thy nest amongst the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So from that time, you started going down. And that was a total demoralization of this society. Matter of fact, let's go to the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2. The world is going to, the world already knows to a certain degree, but they're really going to find out how corrupt the society really is and how corrupt these devils really are. This is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 15. It says, woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink and putteth thy bottle to him. Right, and that's dealing with what we were speaking about earlier. They think that because they keep pushing that depraved sexual perversion upon Jake, and Jake is involved in it and doing that, and having this abominable diet and wearing these abominable clothing and getting into these abominable philosophies, that's going to stop the Most High from still accepting Jake. Now, a lot of Jake is going to die, but you still have the elect, the Israel of the Most High, that will make it, and the ones that die here are going to come back through the ones that make it. You see? So it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what Jake does. The Lord it's already set. It's already etched in stone that the Lord is still going to choose Jake. But be that as it may, we still try to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Heavenly Father to the best of our ability. That's not what's going to save us. But because we have a cloak for our sins, that doesn't mean that we use it maliciously and just do whatever the hell we want to do, and just say, oh, Yahushua already took, care of that. He already took the bill, which he did. He paid for the bill, but that doesn't give us a carte blanche or a blank check to just do whatever the hell we want to do. So it says, and makest him drunk also, right? Because you present Jake with these things, you tell him that it's okay. You have their leaders push that it's okay, and then you try to accuse them. That's what the scriptures speak about, the accuser of thy brethren. You know, it says that thou mayest look on their nakedness, because what you're doing is you're promoting and you're making sin acceptable in this society by the agendas that you're pushing. Therefore, certain jakes, they go to a point where they say, fuck it, I'm just going to do whatever the hell everybody else is doing. Why not? The scriptures say, follow not a multitude to sin, to do evil. And you pushing that heavy. And Jake, was pretty much made to eat pork during slavery. They were given the worst part of the pig, and they made it taste the best. So that's already embedded in them. So when these devils push that out there, that the laws are done away with, you can eat whatever you want. You have these fish fries, these get-togethers in the church, and they eating all type of abominable filth that's in their vessels. You're pushing that, but you're pushing that to keep Jake in a sinful state, thinking that that's going to separate the Most High from them, which the ones that keep doing that, the Lord's going to destroy. But what you don't understand is that there's still an election among the nation of Israel that's not going to bow down to that. The Lord said, I have reserved 7,000 men that shall not bow to the knee to Baal, to the image of Baal. So there's nothing you could do. And what you're doing by continuously doing these wicked things is you're adding more and more to your bill. You done chewed off more than, your ass done chewed off more than you can eat. So it goes on to say, this is the point here, thou art filled with shame for glory. Yeah, because you have glory, you have splendor, you have the whole world in your hand. But it's filled with shame. Matter of fact, there's a precept there. Let me see what it says for with shame. Or more with shame than with glory, right? Because the way you got this place was through straight up shame. You didn't get it through a benevolent way. You got it shamefully. And it's starting to come out. The nations are starting to wake up to you. The world is starting to see what you're going through. That's why you have these devils, these Edomites, speaking about that critical race theory. Because they don't want that shameful history to come out anymore, because it's stinging them in the ass. But that's what the Lord said would be happening in these days. Then shall the righteous stand with great boldness in the face of them that afflicted them, and made no account of their labors. You got to pay for that. And it's not going to stop. Or your children get offended. So motherfucking what? We were offended. Our children were offended. Our parents were offended, so on and so forth. You reap what you sow, man. And you devils, you got a nerve, man. You got a nerve to get mad. You got a nerve to get mad because we're telling you the truth. We're telling you what you've done. We ain't saying nothing, that you haven't done. We ain't putting no extra stuff. We ain't putting no cream and cherry on top. We're just telling it like it is. And there's plenty to go around. And there's multitudes of wickedness that you've done that you haven't paid for yet, and pretty much that hasn't even been spoken of, that there's no evidence of, that's been buried. But the Lord said that the earth shall no more disclose her blood, because the Lord is going to reveal that when the time comes. So what you're being, the things that are being brought out on you right now, these charges, that's pretty much the tip of the iceberg. Or should I say half of the iceberg. You don't know what else lies beneath, what else you've hidden. But it's all going to come out. It's all going to come out. So it says that thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. Right. Let you be naked now. And you're being made naked in the face of all of these people. From the sins you committed to the prophets of the Lord coming out here and exposing you. And showing your shame to the world. It says, the cup of the Lord's right hand, what's the cup of the Lord's right hand? Righteousness, truth. The truth shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. So the world is going to know what you've done. And this demoralization is a part of it. It's all part of your plans, but guess what? It's part of the Lord's plans too. Your plans are the Lord's plans, and that's what he got you set up for. But the Lord is going to disrupt your plans at a particular time, at a specific point. Because you have the world in a downward spiral. This is why, let's go to the book of Revelation 17. This is why this is written. Let's go to Revelation 17. And I'll start at 3. The point is in 5. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. The woman is America. The scarlet-colored beast is NATO and the EU. Full of names of blasphemy, because they call themselves, Israelites. They call themselves, Christians. They say that they're the Most High, they're Yahweh Shai, so on and so forth. Having 7 heads and 10 horns, which represents the whole structure of Esau's kingdoms, beginning with the Greeks, ending with the British, and then the 8th head being America. It says, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, because she is, set up in a lofty position. That's why she was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, because she was known as a golden city. She was known as a beacon of light to the world at one time. But now that golden city is ceasing, they're starting to see that was just a cheap veneer of fool's gold that was on it, and it's vanishing, and the real metal is coming out. It's being tarnished. It says, having a golden cup in her hand, right? And that golden cup in her hand is a representation of everything that America pushes on the world, and makes the whole world to be demoralized, just like they're demoralized here. From the diets, to the sexual preferences, and many, many other things, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Because of fornication, is pretty much adultery. Her spreading, herself and all these different nations laying down with her. That's her adultery from between her legs. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, because America is the biggest conglomeration of confusion. The mother of harlots, because you could worship anything you want here in America. You want to worship dogs, you can worship dogs. You want to worship horses, you can worship horses. You can worship and be whatever you want to be. You have so-called freedom of religion in this country. It says, and abominations of the earth, right? And that cup also has, that mingled alphabet soup wine in there. And that's being pushed all over the place. And not just that, but the whole depravity of this place. Alphabet soup is just one of them. Adultery is heavily promoted in this society. If you make a song on adultery, they will extol it to the clouds and make sure that it's a super hit, something catchy that everybody starts singing. And then when you start singing it, it works on your psyche. It works on your psyche. It encourages you. And being that every video you see or movie that you see or songs that come out, different things of that nature, is all about adultery, everybody thinks it's okay because it's being promoted that way. That's what the Lord said he would bring you down. So you're going to eventually go all the way down, because the Lord said, though they build, I will throw down. But morally, there's a moral decay happening in this society, and has been happening in this society since the 60s all the way to the present time. But it's prevailing even more and more now in these times, because we're at the very end. See, and now that the bankers pretty much used up America, it's time to go to the next phase and set up the new world order, which is always, it will always be predicated upon, finance. The dollar is dead. You know, the world reserve currency of this dollar is dead because they use it for what they needed it to. Now it's moving on to the next monetary, fund, which would be the C to the H to the I to the P, which is a charagma, the MO to the TB, you know, and that's what they're pushing towards. And once you get that in place, then you're really gonna be downward spiraling. You know, you think you're going down now, you're gonna be going down like a cheap slut on a Saturday night. Once you push that fully, and it's out there, both for the hand, for the brain, everything. It's all out there. You know, they're pushing biometric heavy. You know, digital ID, digital footprints, digital money, digital everything, digital records. Everything is going in that direction. So if you're still denying that in 2022, then you're either just that blind or you sold out. You took a bag. Because you can't be that ignorant, you know, especially you guys that call yourself Israelites that are, you know, in these leadership positions. You know, you're in positions to where, you know, certain ones of you have done deep research to be able to go into the scriptures and bring out, you know, scriptures and break them down, you know, to a certain point, break down, say 90 to 95% of the scriptures down right. You know, you had to have done deep research. So you're not a dummy. So either that's really blocked out of your psyche, you know, you just really don't know about it, or you took the bag. And we think that you took the bag. We have no proof of it, but your speech bewrayeth thee. You know, your speech, you know, witnesses against you that you took that bag. But we'll see. We'll find out soon. So that was it on that. So this place is going down. It's being demoralized by the day. The Lord said that once they went up and tried to set their nest among the stars, then the Lord would bring them down. And that's the point that we're at right now. And that's why you see everything happening the way it's happening. And it's been decaying going back to the 60s, but much more so now. Then you had the drug problem, you know, the opioid problem in America. Oh, man. You know, that really brought this place down to its knees. Because, to be an alcoholic is one thing. To be, you know, addicted to certain things is another thing. But to be addicted to drugs, that's a whole different beast right there. You know, and it's hard for people to get off of that. You know, once they're hooked into it. You know, that's a very hard thing to kick. You know, because it's terrible. You know, people have turned to something else, you know, dealing with these drugs. They've sold their children. They've done all kind of crazy shit that they would have never done if they were in their right mind, you know. So this place is finished. Thence will I bring you down. So with that, I pray that your brothers and your few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say shalom. Hey, well, the sister says she has 13 years clean. Hey, Barakateh, how about Shem Shai, man? Because that's hard, man. Shalom.